Sadiq Abdul Aleem is a self taught abstract artist and 3-time award winning documentarian whose work transforms raw emotion, spiritual depth, and lived experience into bold visual testimony. Working through the language of abstraction, he creates paintings that speak to hope, truth, struggle, transcendence, and the beauty carried by those who have felt unseen or misunderstood. Creating under the name The Closet Artist, Abdul Aleem draws from a life shaped by silence, faith, travel, and revelation. His work is informed by his father's love of nature and art, his journeys across Europe and the Americas, and a spiritual and intellectual foundation shaped by Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, and Hindu thought. Whether behind the camera or at the canvas, he approaches storytelling as an act of witness. For him, art is more than expression. It is a space for meditation, testimony, and offering. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, Abdul Aleem is an American artist, Marine Corps veteran, mental health professional, and he holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in religion with a concentration in culture and public life. And all proceeds from his paintings go directly to supporting the future of his 5 sons. In that way, his art becomes more than a creative pursuit. It becomes an enduring expression of love, legacy, and possibility. Welcome to the show, Brother Sadiq Abdul Aleem. You're so excited.
Welcome to Drawing from the Soul. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. We know this is going to be a gift to the audience out there, and we're looking forward to learning more about you. I was always enamored by your work, and as you can see behind you, we have a few of your samples. We're going to get into that, talking more about your style, how you evolved your style, how your artwork played a role in health and healing, your life journey. And, you know, for those who don't know you, we kind of just want to start off with that foundation. So you want to?
Well, I'm very interested to know about your journey from, and I don't know which came first, the closet artist, or the man as a Sadiq Abdul Aleem, the documentarian, the Marine Corps veteran. Where would you like to start in terms of what you feel laid the foundation for the man behind the paintings?
Okay. Let me first say again, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be with both of you guys. I mean, I'm like, I don't know if this is a compliment or not. I hope it's a compliment. The real queen, and you're like the actual living uh Slim and Queen, or Queen and Slim. Hopefully it doesn't end like that.
Yeah,
But
right.
seriously, but I'm just saying, y'all I got that, I got that type of love for you guys. Um,
Likewise.
as far as that particular question, the closet artist has always been there. It was just a matter of me finally feeling free to say it, because that can be interpreted in many different ways. And I jump straight in that. When I think of the closet artist, right? When I think of the closet, right? I always thought about gay people, right? And they come out the closet, right? Well, I hid the fact that I was an artist for most of my life. I wasn't confident as an artist. I could draw, but drawing was boring to me. You know, I could draw anything. I'm a copy artist, so I could replicate it. I could see it and replicate it. So that made me not confident. And plus, and again, as I mentioned before, I thought it was boring. I'm like, well, why would I want to draw a picture of this, you know, water bottle? It's the water bottle. Who wants a picture of a water bottle? You know, that's how I used to think. Or who wants to picture somebody's face? Why would I do that? So I kind of like suppressed that part of myself. You know, every once in a while it would come out when it needed to. I remember I dated a girl. Let me jump back. I dated this girl back in Ohio, back in Cleveland, and we didn't work out. However, she became a hairstylist, and the woman I married at the time was getting her hair done at her hair salon, and my wife knew about me as an artist. She knew I could draw. You know, she saw my expression at that time, and she was telling and bragging about it, I guess. And the girl was like, "That MF can't draw. He can't even draw a stick shift." Now, a stick figure. Now, the crazy part, I was messing or dating this particular woman for 3 or 4 years, and she had no idea that I could draw. That's how deep it was for me. I never let people know. And again, certain people in my world knew. You know, if you knew me in kindergarten or something like that, you knew I had the ability to draw. But that's nothing I went around because I thought it was corny at the time. So where do I start? The closet artist has always been there. Again, I'm just now at a point in my life where I feel confident to say that. Go ahead.
I know you've shared a story before about Ferdinand the Bull.
Ferdinand the Bull.
Could you tell us about that and how that connects to your journey as an artist?
Yes. So Ferdinand the Bull, for you guys out there in the world who don't know who Ferdinand is. Ferdinand is a story about a bull who was bred to fight. You know, he was a massive bull. You know, in Spain, I think it was either in Spain or Mexico. You know, he was supposed to be it was Spain. I'm going to say it was Spain. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he was supposed to be he was supposed to fight. You know, again in Spain, that's the culture is for bulls to fight, right? And since he was this big, massive bull, people were terrified of him. Well, come to find out, he didn't want to fight at all. He wanted to sniff flowers. He wanted to lay under a tree, paint, or draw. You know, he wanted to be amongst nature and play with the birds. And they thought that was the craziest thing on the planet because he was this massive bull, and it would be an honor to fight this bull. And he wanted no parts of that. So I always saw myself in that story. I always saw myself as Ferdinand because despite my outer appearance, or what you think I look like is a black man or a man or whatever I am, you know, we're going to talk about that too. As a man of African descent, some form of African descent, the world sees me a certain way. And it could be like old dog, it could be like, whoever. But at that time in my life, and even sometimes now, it's not a pretty picture that sometimes the world sees because of what was projected. So I'm not what they think I am, what they see me as. I'm the exact opposite. You know, have I fought and did things like that in my life? Yes, I couldn't stand it. That was out of necessity a lot of times, because if I could avoid, I would avoid fighting and stuff like the plague. I was not a tough person. I'm still not. I see no sense in any type of violence whatsoever. Even though I've been in violent situations, I still thought it was pointless. So wrapping that up, that's what Ferdinand was about. So despite my outer appearance, I will admit I am an artist.
Is that what led you to the closet artist with the
That's
K?
what led me to the
That's
closet.
why you spell it with a K, right?
I spelled it with a K. Yeah, because the C was taken. I spelled
It's still a pretty cool version of it.
yeah.
Now I was going to say, well, okay, so for those who don't know, you're born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio,
Right.
and you were actually sharing uh, some of the experiences you had, you know, different neighborhoods you lived in, and I think really what you were saying too is relevant to a lot of young males growing up in society who feel as though they're pressured to be a certain way. You know, if they're not, if they don't carry themselves a certain way, they're looked at as being weak when they're just not flexing, you know, maybe their true power. You know, they carry a certain power, but they don't always have to flex it.
Right.
You know, you just want to enjoy life. Why do I want to always be in
Right.
confrontation?
Or create.
Right.
Right. Or yeah, I
Right.
want to create. So I think
Right.
that was really interesting that you shared that because there, remember I was saying, um, there are people who may be watching this, they're you back then now. They're dealing with, I have to be tough right now when really I just want to draw. I want to create. I just want to be in a peaceful state of mind.
Right.
So
Or use your power, you know, and to create,
do you,
I
so do
wasn't. Go
transport.
ahead.
and I'm saying like, so how do you get the self-determination? Because really that's what that is, to be able to stand on your own and not succumb to what everybody else thinks you should be.
Or what was that process like to get to that point, actually?
Ooh, that was a long process. Uh, my family, well, we were from East Cleveland. We came from East Cleveland, right? And in the '70s, in the mid '70s, uh, the mid '70s, my father moved us to Cleveland Heights. He bought a house in Cleveland Heights in the mid '70s. And the way I could describe East Cleveland actually at the time, East Cleveland was beautiful. It was, you could see it was starting to decline. It was more like Beirut. So if I compare it to Philly or Atlanta, if and Philly would be like North Philly, East Cleveland was like North Philly. Cleveland Heights was like Mount Airy. And in Atlanta, Cleveland Heights was like Bankhead. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm sorry, East Cleveland was like Bankhead,
Hmm.
and Cleveland Heights was like Roswell.
Hmm.
Mm.
So it's a completely different parallel. If that's what different universes,
Hmm.
completely different universes, right? And then you knew it too, because for some odd reason, people couldn't stand people in Cleveland Heights. Because after a while, you develop this look. I was surrounded by Caucasian people, like
What you got?
real hippies, real people who loved and knew themselves. It was one of the greatest environments ever to be raised in. We were very fortunate. On the other part of that, because of the condition, or at that time, and still to this day, because you will still hear people say, "Oh man, you from Cleveland Heights? Oh man, what, man, what does that mean? Oh man, you ain't from the dirt. Why would I want to be from the dirt? Well, actually, I am from the dirt. God created us because we're going to go back to the dirt. And if you want to get technical, but no, I'm not from the dirt. No, I didn't grow up with holes in my shoes. If you did, you were unfortunate. It's unfortunate for you, but no, I didn't grow up with holes in my shoes. Fortunately, I had parents who loved me. And the mistakes I made were the mistakes I chose. It was all self-inflicted things that I did. So that's what it was like growing up in Cleveland and Cleveland Heights. It was like a unnecessary war zone, like the Warriors, the movie The Warriors. Ha! So the Warriors would be people from Cleveland Heights trying to get back to Cleveland Heights through all the madness, through all
Yeah.
the different boroughs,
Hmm.
and everybody's trying to attack them, even though it was for a lie, you
Hmm.
know. But that's what it was like. That's what it was like growing up in Cleveland Heights, and I was a part of that. And the reality too was I wasn't tough. I'm not a tough guy. Hence, going back to the Ferdinand thing. So, despite my outer appearance, I may look tough, but in reality, I didn't want any parts of it. I didn't want to fight. I had to sometimes, but if I could avoid it, I would avoid it like the plague. And I didn't care what they could call me a punk, a bag, whatever.
Mhm.
I'm not about to subject myself to that unnecessarily,
Mhm.
you know, which moved me to going to the Marines,
Mhm.
right? Because part of me did want to be tough. I did want to be tough. I did want to be hard. You can't be who can be harder than a Marine. So I met a guy. It was a guy I grew up with named Leroy Garrett. I'm going to say his full name. If he sees this, he'll
Hey.
know exactly what story I'm talking about. And I saw Leroy once. His name even sounds tough, don't it? Leroy. That's a tough name.
Actually, no.
No, that's not a tough name.
That's in your
Leroy. I
head.
always thought Leroy was a tough name. Leroy. That's Leroy.
Remember,
No disrespect to the Leroy of
remember,
the world.
remember
Yeah.
bad Leroy Brown?
Oh, Leroy.
Right.
Oh, you
Yeah,
know,
nah, Leroy, that
Bad
was the tough
Leroy's a
name.
tough name, man.
you know what, you put it like that, but not.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Leroy's a tough name. So I saw Leroy one day. Leroy's a few years older than me. And he was in a mall with his Marine Corps uniform on. And I said, man, hey Leroy. I said, man, you became a Marine? He's like, yeah, Lil Wayne, man. I said, can I be a Marine? He said, man, you want to be a Marine? I said, I would be a Marine. He said, well, come on, man. It was just like that. Everything just stopped. He took me to the recruiter right then and there, and I signed up. I'm signed in. I signed up. I couldn't sign in. That's what it was. I signed up because I was 16. I couldn't sign in until I was 18. And I turned 18. 2 weeks later, I graduated high school. I left into the Marines. Now, there's a whole nother story behind that, but I'm giving y'all the simple version. And I did that because, again, in my family, my uncle, my father's younger brother, the baby of the group, he would describe me to his friends and everyone as the flower child of the family. Right? Here's the hippie, here's the flower child. Because he knew who I really was. He knew that I wasn't this tough guy. So he's like this. Like I was like, hey, this is my nephew, the flower child. That's how you would literally introduce. We were in Germany. That's how he introduced me. Hey, this is my nephew, the flower child of the family. He's the hippie, right? And I didn't want to be that for a long time. I didn't want to be that. So I joined the Marines, and don't you know, I realized after that experience, I was a flower child. I didn't want any parts of being a Marine. That was the craziest, wildest experience I've ever had in my life. I can't even go into what that experience was like.
Mhm.
But it was very traumatic. I say that. It was a traumatic experience in witnessing that part of the machine. I'm grateful for it, especially because of today. My time and service and me signing my name on that dotted line um, gave me everything I have now. You know, if I could do it over, would I do it over? Yes, because now I understand it. But at that time, at 18, 19, 20, that was crazy. That was crazy. And they don't prepare you for that. And that's why you see many of, go ahead, Kim, you have a question about it? I think, yeah.
Well, you go ahead and finish
Okay.
your thought when you're going to say that's why you see many.
You see many people come out a certain way. Many of them come out altered, for lack of a better word. They come out altered, and that could be for a good or a bad thing. Uh, but that was one of the wildest experiences I've ever had in my life, uh, being around that type of environment. Would I send my sons? I have 5 sons. Would I send my sons there today? I would. Not to the Marines. They wouldn't go to the Marines. They would go to like the Air Force or the Space Force. We're going to do it. We're going to do it right. But as far as the Marines, absolutely not. You ain't got to be tough. Hell with that, hell with the tough stuff. But it did pay off at the end. But go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, everything you said was really a lot of what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
So now I'm just wondering, who would you say that you were most trying to prove something to in terms of at that point in your life when you wanted to be this image of being tough? I
Where
understand.
are you? Where are you getting these questions from? Who is telling you to answer these
Well, I
This gone from your
imagine
soul,
that
brother.
it would have to be
questions?
a heavy influence because you said, you went at 16 and as soon as you saw Leroy.
It was my father. It was people around me and my father, right? I had a very unique relationship with my father, who I love to life. I miss him so much, and I had it twisted. See, my father knew who I was too. You know, he knew that I was. He even told me out his mouth. He said, "You're gifted." He said, "Out of my children, you got the gifts." He said, "Now that's not taking away from your brother and sister." He said, "But you're gifted. So why are you doing all this other stuff, man?" You know, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. I, I was called corny for that by many people, male and female. I was a cornball because I didn't drink or smoke. Even in the Marines, it's like, man, what's wrong with you? I didn't eat meat, but I was trying to impress my father. I wanted my father to think I was tough because, like I said, he's from that. But that was the point. Yes, I'm from that. You don't have to be because that's not necessary.
Mhm.
That's what he was trying to tell me, man. You don't have to go through this. That's why you're here. That's why I brought you here. Because you don't have to go through this. You could just go straight into it, brother.
Mhm,
I gave you the green light.
mhm.
You keep going back into this mess. You keep, he said, I'll never forget this day. He said, hey man, he said, he put me to say, he said, hey man, for a man who don't drink and smoke, you sure get in trouble like one.
Like you
I
might as
was like,
well drink and
because
smoke.
I was always, again, that goes back to the Tupac. That goes to this Tupac thing. I saw, like I said, I saw a lot of parallels between Tupac and I. Tupac was not built like that. He put himself in those situations. You know, it can be. It's many interviews who tell you, that discuss him. So I always related to Tupac in that sense. He became a character. He became Bishop. To me, that's who he became. He transformed into this character named Bishop to be played in Juice. And that ended up costing him his life because that's not who he really was. And that's the same path that I was heading down at that time. I didn't even think I was gonna make it past 23. I really didn't. I was so scared when that time and moment was coming up. I mean, I couldn't sleep, because most people I knew, especially the tough guys, were dying. You hear about it all the time. They didn't make it past 21, 20, 23. And here I am coming up on 23. And I'm like, oh man. And I'm out here putting myself in this crazy world that I had no business being a part of. So forth and so on. I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh.
Oh, no problem necessary. It's all a part of the journey. You just
Okay, yeah,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking that, these how our stories are often universal, of course, so other
yeah,
people can relate. That's why, I really appreciate everything that you're saying. And I'm wondering, how you said how you were blessed to be able to grow up with both your parents who intentionally put you in certain environments, but and then we see that even in that we can, misinterpret some things and put pressure on ourselves.
right.
Um, even when we have what it is, so I'm wondering, are there certain things that you may have misinterpreted that let's say your father said, and you thought it meant one thing, because that often happens. And
Yeah,
maybe when we get older, we look at it a different way.
yeah. Kim, I'm going to call you the Oracle. That is going to be your nickname from this point on. You are now the Oracle. Because, like I said, I don't know where you coming from with these questions, but yes, a lot of the way I pivoted through uh, my life at that time, even to this day, had something to do with how I misinterpreted my father.
Mm,
He was of a certain generation. He was a very stern and righteous individual. He he was a beautiful man. a beautiful human being. Again, I miss him to this day. I'm trying not to get emotional right now talking about him.
All right.
Um, and he didn't know how to express, you know, that part, because again, a father, all they want to do is see their sons be successful.
Yeah,
That's period. It's no other person I know on this planet who wants to see their sons become something more than their father.
yeah.
And I knew this. I realized that. But by the time I realized it, he was already on his decline. He had multiple myeloma. And he ended up transitioning from that. So I misinterpreted his lack of uh
Outward
not
action.
right. He wasn't affectionate. He was and he wasn't. It was like I said, it's a different type of male. He was a manly man. You know, we both come from we even though you guys are a few years older than me, we still came from the same generation. I think y'all still X. Y'all might be the beginning of X. But that X generation, those were the boomers and before them, and they were just different people, different ways of expressing themselves. And I required a certain matter of fact, let's go back. I'm glad he did do the waving. When he transitioned, I was holding him. I was there with him, holding him in my arms. Like I
Mhm,
said, I came into this world in his arms, he left out in mine.
mhm,
It was beautiful. But I had an opportunity to tell him how much I thanked him. Hey man, I thank you for hey, when the time you whooped me, I deserved it. And I appreciate that, brother.
mhm,
Thank you so much for
mhm,
doing what you thank you for being my dad. Thank
mhm,
you for being my father. Thank you for being there. Hey man, I got to tell him all this stuff. Before that and while I was holding him as he,
Right.
left in my arms.
mhm,
Uh um but yeah, I just misinterpreted it because I thought I was supposed to be tough. I thought I was supposed,
Mhm.
because he was from Glenville, East Tech, that hard, rough area, St. Clair, East 99, that's where he was from. And I thought I was supposed to live up to where and come to find out it was the exact opposite.
mhm,
And
And we're going to, mm,
well, I was just going to say that,
yeah,
how it comes all together in the end, and how these cycles repeat themselves
yeah,
generationally. I'm sure,
yeah.
with his generation coming up with his father, there was something for him to learn, and what he didn't get, he tried to, provide that for you. So it all is like I believe it all comes together, and it's all okay.
Well, he didn't have a father.
Mm,
He
okay.
met his father one time, and a week later, his father died. you
okay,
know, and that's a deeper story than that too. So I had empathy for him even then. Again, as a young man, I understood that he was doing the best that he could with what he had,
mhm,
raising us. And he did an outstanding job. To be real with you, the man was incredible. Again, that's why I'm sitting where you see me right now. Is because all this is him. It's
mhm,
God, but it's really, through my father.
mhm,
My
Wow.
father had such an impact, and all I can hear his voice. I kind of sound like him, but I hear him all the time. In any situation, he was telling he gave me the blueprint from day one, and I was so stubborn. We're gonna get in that as well sooner or later. I was a very stubborn
mhm,
person, and like I said, I just misunderstood at that time what he was saying, and it didn't. What is it biblically? They say it's either 40 days or 40 years. I think that's how it goes. That Jesus walked the earth for 40 years. It was something it had something to do with 40-40, and it took me 40 years to accept and figure out what he had for me,
Mhm.
and now I see it coming full circle. I see that.
Yeah, this is this
Mhm.
really helps me understand too, like, like how we relate, because that reminds me of my father. Like when you talk
Yeah.
about your father, he's from that same generation of my father, and then my father, his relationship with his father was basically a tumultuous one. Um, And what was really interesting that I think applies to a lot of young people now is
Mhm.
how you had to basically create this character. You know, this character, like you said, Tupac created this character,
Yeah.
and a lot of the young kids now, they what when you know a lot of them are great kids,
Yeah.
teenagers, great teenagers, and because of like social media, because the peer pressure is even greater than when we were
Right.
young. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
we thought we
Right.
had some peer pressure. Now these young
Right.
kids, their life can be turned around overnight by kids making fun of them on social media. You can't take it
Right.
down. You know, they pump
Right.
you on social media. Now what are you going to do? So
Right.
now they have to amp it up even more, and now they actually become this character that really they didn't want to become.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's to me, part of that whole self-determination, standing in your power, not letting other people direct who you should be, because your life is your movie. You can't let
Right.
those people, they're the directors of your movie. You become the director of your movie. So a lot of that, man, I really appreciate you sharing that about your father, and it helps us really to understand more about you, and just that whole love that you have for your father. I think that's really
Yeah.
important for a lot of people to understand.
Yeah.
So let's see. I'm trying to see like where creativity played in this part, like where your parents creative, and from that era that you were coming up,
Right.
the closet artist kid, um, were you drawing a lot in your quiet space? Like when were you creating, or did you just not create because of the environment?
No. How did I find out I could draw? So, one day my mother upset me, right? I had to be about 5. My mother said something to me or upset me, put me on punishment, or maybe go to my room or something like that, right? And so while I was in my room, I drew a picture of her, right? And I started drawing this picture, and it just got more and more detailed. And I was like, yeah, because this is how I was feeling, like, you know. And I went back downstairs. I wasn't allowed to come downstairs. I went back downstairs anyway. And I said, "Yeah," right? Like, right? This is you. Mm. And I drew a picture of her hanging on a with a noose
Uh-uh.
over
Oh,
I'm
over.
surprised. I'm surprised
and
you
you
still
still
walking the earth.
Hey man,
exactly. How did you
she beat the hell out me,
Oh,
man.
man.
literally,
Right.
literally?
And it was so
Beat that
detailed.
demon out of you.
I remember when I saw Prince's movie Purple Rain, and it was that flash scene of his father hanging, and that's
Mhm.
how I drew my mother, literally over our dining room table. We had the chandelier, still like that to this day.
And for that. Mhm.
And I had her dangling in her robe and everything, just dangling there. I said, "Eh." Boy, she lit me up, but I knew I could draw. And at that point, I knew I could draw, and that was the first thing I created on my own. Because remember, and I think we're tapping in that because eventually I became known as a copy artist because I could replicate things. I could replicate anything I saw, which I thought was boring. But that was the first original thing I had ever drawn. Probably I didn't draw anything original after that because she beat the
She
life
beat
out of me, man.
all the drawings and the draws out
Right?
of
But-
you.
She beat the
Well,
drawing from the soul out
draws
of me,
and
man.
the
let's okay, so because the audience are gonna say, man, what was on his mind? So
exactly. That's what I want to know. Where did, since you're a copy artist, where had you seen that image?
yeah, because what I would want to know is,
Yep.
because I could think of things that I drew that I really didn't understand what I was drawing, and I could even think of a story where my brother jacked me up for something I said, but I didn't know what I was saying. I was imitating what I heard some other guy say, and I said it to my brother, and he jacked me up. But that's a whole nother story. So I'm wondering, is this something that was was conscious of you because of a relationship that you had, or was it something like you said, I saw it on a movie and then I'm just replacing this character.
You was 5.
Well,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was
that's what
5.
I'm saying.
Like,
I'm replacing this
what you
with this
saying?
person, just so there's clarity, so then the audience understands. Like, oh, okay,
Understand.
yeah.
Where I saw that stuff, where I got that image from, was my father. My father would watch 60 Minutes a lot. You know, my father was like a historian type guy. He was like you say, he was a real. He was that guy.
Right.
You know, he was in the National Geographic then. You know, um, uh, 60 Minutes and anything that had to do with Black consciousness and things
Tony
like that.
Brown's
So,
journal.
right. So I would see on 60 Minutes, you know, images of people being hung, you know, slaves and things like that. And all that stuff stuck with me. You know, those images stuck in my head. Seeing the 1965 Watts riots and things like, I was watching all this stuff, even though it wasn't 1965, it was 1977.
Mhm.
But being around him, because you had to watch what he watched. Whatever he was watching, you had to watch. You wouldn't know, I'm gonna go to my room and watch this television. If he was watching that, so I was absorbed in it. And that's where I got that image from. I like to say I remember it like to this day, you know, seeing a man hanging off an oak tree, and he was half burnt and people were looking at him. You know, it was like a group of white people, you know, like,
I know exactly which image you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, that stuck in my head. So I took that image and I saw the chandelier and I saw it and I said, okay, I can draw my mother like that. Because that's where I wish she was, because she's, you know, she put me on punishment, told me how to go to my room. So so that's where those images came from. And that's a whole nother thing too, the image thing. I said, I didn't mean to say my mind just goes back to the Marine Corps. And I don't know if I'm skipping, you know, I don't know if I'm skipping.
No, tell your story.
So when I got to the Marines, this was Desert Storm, right? This is just when the Gulf War, Desert Storm had kicked off. And what I'm saying, this is crazy. This is crazy. Not only do you have me doing push-ups in a goddamn hurricane, in the middle of a hurricane, now you're telling me that you're about to send me to a war. I just got here. Well, it doesn't matter. You know, they started naming where everyone was going. They said, "Hey, you over there, Smith, you're going to radio. You're going to be in communications, right? You're going to San Diego. Hey, you, Perry, you're going over here to Air Wing Station. You know, so hey, you." You guys talking about me, infantry. You're going to MTI school, military trained infantry school, MIT, military infantry, MIT or MTI, so MTI, MIT, military infantry training, military Marine Corps infantry training, something like that. I'm like, what? yeah, because you're going over there. And I literally said to them, how? How is that possible? I just got here. That's where you're going. And after about a month, I mean, about 15 days into Marine Corps training or whatever I was doing, infantry training or whatever, they gave us an opportunity to call home. This is the first time I got to call home. And I called my parents and I said, hey, my mother answered the phone. I said, Ma, she said, hey, how you doing? So I said, yeah. I said, they're sending me. My mother got real quiet. And I said, but my mind won't shut off. She said, what did you say? I said, I can't shut my mind off. My mind is always on. Even when I sleep, it's still going. She said, oh, that's just you maturing. I said, no, whatever, okay. But in my mind, in my heart, I'm like, no, that's not what, I don't know what this is, but my mind won't shut off. Like something clicked in me. Something happened between, like I said, there's something that happened. I told you that was a very crazy experience being in the Marines. Some crazy stuff happened. I saw and witnessed and some crazy stuff. Very bizarre. The Full Metal Jacket couldn't even. That was probably the closest thing to what, and that was light glaze of what really goes on in there. And but and so I said, well, whatever. Put Dad on the phone. Let me speak to Dad. You know, I said, Dad, they sending me. He said, hey man, that's what you signed up for. You know, that's part of it. I just said, okay, Dad. See, now I can be tough. Now I gotta be tough again. I knew what he meant. Now, you know, flashing back, I knew what he meant. You know, I knew he was hurt too, but he had to stay strong as well because I had to stay. Because if he would have crumbled, I would have probably really crumbled. Right. You know, again, I have boys. I get it now. You know, and it's hard. He was probably tore up. Like, damn, they about to send my son over here. He gonna get like his friends did in Vietnam and so forth. So, damn, and that's about to happen to my son. Like, I couldn't even imagine what he was going through. But that's when everything really started for me. Was when I went to the Marines. Again, something clicked, and I could not shut my mind off. And that evolved into years later. Years of people saying that I was crazy. Again, a weird thing. I was always weird, but now you're not just weird. He's crazy. I really wasn't. That's what's all this going to come into play as well. I was none of that, and I was kind of accepting because a lot of them were educated people. You know, at that time, you know, everybody went to college, and I went to the military. They were all, you know, I went to trade school. You know, you're not educated. You're crazy. You know, some of that I was kind of sipping the Kool-Aid with. But I wasn't crazy. Nowhere near it. I had a very high, I'm not even calling it imagination. I was just somewhere else, you know, and they were stuck on planet Earth, self-medicating. And I was in a whole nother universe, kind of like Brother Man. You're in a whole nother universe. But the people I was surrounded with or around, because I chose to put myself around those people, didn't get that. Because their world is I'm gonna say basic. I'm gonna call it like it is. They can be upset with me, whatever, but they're basic, and I wasn't basic. Nothing about me was basic. You know, I was again somewhere else. And again, it took me till again 40. It took me 40 years to accept that I'm not basic. It took me 40 years to accept that, you know, hey, it is something very special and unique about you. Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
Well, I would just want to say that or ask, just skipping ahead a little bit, but still coming back, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you're a mental health professional now,
which is really funny,
right? You know, so I want you to, you know, just share about that, you know, and looking back at yourself at that time, because a lot of times, you know, what's considered, you know, a mental problem may be, you know, just a misalignment, you know, and being, you know, just hyper aware and not having a way to process it. So I'm just asking you now, with you being a mental health professional, and then I would like to go, you know, you and with where Daoud was coming from, with going back to how art helped you through that too, you know, and then your other aspects of art, being a documentarian and all of that. So, as a mental health professional now, looking back.
So it's many parts of that. Again, just as being an American of African descent, there's layers of us, right? There's so many layers of us as individuals, or as a whole, as a community, as a diaspora, if I'm saying that right, diaspora, if I'm saying that right. There's so many layers of us, layers that we have to kind of sift through. How the mental health thing came was some people in my world at the time, again coming from Cleveland or whatever, I dove into many different things. Whatever I put my mind to, I could do. So if I wanted to open up this, I could do it. If I opened up a vintage clothing store, opened up an art gallery, opened up a natural hair salon. Whatever I wanted to do, I could do it just with rawness, no experience. I just was able to do it. And you please help me because again I go. So reel me back in if I go off too far. So I'm gonna try to dial it back in right quick. I remember I'm gonna share a quick story with you. This is how my mind is. I was 10 years old, right? I'm born in April, early April, and I remember my birthday. My birthday fell on Easter one year, and I thought, okay, wow, my birthday's on Easter every year. I'm an Easter baby, whatever. But I was 10 years old. And my mother said that your birthday is right around the corner, right? She said, hey, your birthday's right around the corner, right? So that day, because it was a weekend, I didn't have to go to school. I went out in front of my house and sat on the sidewalk waiting for my birthday, the number 11, to walk around the corner.
Yo, I did the same thing.
That's what she told me. That's how I interpreted it. I said, I literally went outside, and I know she's like, this boy is crazy. I know my parents kept saying this boy is crazy. I went outside because I remember it was this show called The Letter People growing up. Mr. O, Mrs. O, and it's the Letter People. If anybody out in this world remember The Letter People, this is back in the 70s. You had the show called The Letter People. So I pictured the number 11 literally walking up the street and is about to walk and jump into my body, and all of a sudden I was going to be 11. I thought that's how it worked. And the reason that didn't happen before is because I was asleep, when my birthday came. But this time I'm awake.
The visual part.
Right, and I'm visualizing. She says it's right around the corner, so here it come around Euclid Heights, and it was gonna be blue. Yeah, it was blue on top of that periwinkle blue. There's a periwinkle
This
blue.
is animation shit. This is how animation
right here.
This is how animation would go. So it's normal.
Right, and it was gonna walk into my body, and I was gonna all of a sudden become 11, like. So just letting y'all know that's how my mind is.
You gotta be real clear.
So that's how just so y'all know, that's how my mind is.
Okay.
All right. So with that being said, go back to this thing now.
Oh man,
you're gonna have to do an animation with the 11.
I'm already seeing it.
I know you see it.
I'm already seeing it because I experienced that too. I have a story similar. But go ahead, we're on yours.
So going back to that. So some people in where I grew up would consider me, I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying this right. I'm not trying to be pompous or anything saying this. Some people would consider me successful or have been successful because I had these things. But I knew it was always an issue. It was two main issues. One, I couldn't read. And a lot of people didn't know that. I didn't learn how to read or comprehend until I was like, again, 40. I was either 39 or 40. When I was finally able to comprehend or read. Before that, I couldn't read really. It was basics. I probably had like a third grade reading level. Which was strange because my father gave me 3 books and I actually read those and still remember them to this day. But I don't know if it was because I was interested in what he gave me. It was Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and it was a Black Panther book. And for some odd reason, that stuck with me. But outside of that, I couldn't read anything. Right? I don't know what it was about that. So anyway, and for people out there that didn't know, I'm telling the truth about this. And then all of a sudden, the stuff would disappear. So yes, I would have a store. Yes, I would have this. Yes, I would have that. But it would disappear. And the reason it would disappear, and I'm being, as transparent as possible now, is because I knew there was a limit to how far I could really go. Because I never had a team of people around me. When you have these type of things, I had all the ideas, I had the creativity, but I lacked something else. And I was always technically by myself because really no one around me believed in what I saw. They couldn't because they were basic.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't see what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have this vision and you need people around you who believe, not only believe in you, but who can feed into you as well, right? Who can say, you know what, man, it's crazy that sound. I believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get it. I didn't have that. And a lot of that is my fault as well. So I'm not going to blame it on all the basic people. I'm going to say some of the things that I was doing was not ethical. I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm getting to the mental health part. So with that being said, one day it finally caught up to me because the whole time I'm spinning. Through all this, I'm spinning the whole time. My mind is spent. I told you I can't shut my mind off, and I'm spinning the whole time, and you hear people crash. And this particular year, I crashed. It was April 10th, right after my birthday, 2015. I crashed. Bam, like literally, I crashed. And I woke up in a psych ward, in a VA psych ward, right, with my arms locked to the bed, hands busted up. You look at my hands, my hands look like Frankenstein. My hands busted up, and I'm in a psych ward. And there's a doctor in front of me, and this doctor, as I'm coming to, he said, "Oh, hey, you're here." Yeah, I'm here. Mom, I like this though. He said, "Well, I got some news for you. I don't know if it's good news, but you have schizophrenia. You have depression. You have bipolar. You're bipolar. And as I'm sitting here listening to him say these things, because it's kind of dark in there, this huge smile is on my face, and it's a nurse in there. And she's like, "What are you smiling about?" Because I was happy. I'm like, "So you're telling me this has been what's wrong with me this whole time?" See, now I have something I can, okay, can we fix this? Is this something that can be fixed? Is this something is treatable? Now, like I said, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense why I had bad relationships. Now it makes sense why I mixed religion for sex, or I want to use another word for that, not religion, it wasn't spirituality.
Yeah.
Spirituality for sexualness, I get with a chick. I'm spiritual, but I just want to bang you because it's about the spirit. Craziness, just madness, right? Just madness. Now all this is making sense to me. You telling me that's what I see things. I see things.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Started in the Marines. Well, it really ignited in the Marine. Like I said, I told you it was like a switch went off, and I didn't know what was happening to me. It's like I took a pill and whoosh.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, I went into a homeless program. This was 2015. They put me in this, homeless because I'm a veteran. These things come, these services are for me, and I got into a homeless program. I can't believe I'm telling the world this now. Wow, but I got into a homeless program, and they gave me my own room. Normally now you're supposed to have your own room, but they gave me my own room right at the corner of the building. I got my own room. It was nice. It was like a hotel. And it gave me an opportunity. To some people, that would have been the lowest point of their life, which technically to me it was. But at the same time, for me, it was like a new beginning because this was the first time in my life I could actually like regroup. A lot of people don't know I even went through any of that, but I was in a homeless program and I could finally connect. So in this homeless program, I remember because you used to have to go to these classes or these groups, right? You just had to go to these groups. And in these groups, they teach you how to cope, use coping skills or grounding techniques, things that I've never heard of before. Tools that I never, they put these things in your mental toolbox. Things which I think all Black people of all caliber should have. You should learn how to cope. You should learn how to ground yourself. You should learn all these tools because it will help us as a people. Because that's what helped me. Because all that time I was searching, you mentioned in my bio about Buddhism and Hindu and Judaism. I was searching that whole time, Baptist, Pentecostal, I spoke in tongues. Which was kind of dope actually. Because I was searching. Like I knew it was something out there. I always saw myself as the spiritual person, again, using it wrong, because I was using it for sex, which was bizarre. But I always saw myself as this spiritual healer, this healer that I would not commit to because I kept hearing God speak to me, which what they would consider schizo or something like that. But I would hear his voice all the time. I would hear, now it's kind of like my father's voice, but I would hear his voice. And his voice was telling me to do this or do that in a positive way, which I would go against, and then something crazy would happen. But then I would get out of it, right? Because it's God watching over me. Because I've been in some real crazy situations in my life. Been ran over by a car, been shot my goddamn car up, and all types of brother, sister. If y'all only knew what I done went through, I'm surprised I'm still here. Which goes back to the 23 thing. And all this happened after 23. But I found myself, I asked them while I was in this homeless program, I said, because up in that point, see, I still wasn't, well, I started painting. I did start painting. See, I skipped over a lot of stuff. In 1996, I started painting. I met this guy named Robert West. I was staying in this school that was for artists. They transformed the old elementary school into a loft for artists. And a friend of mine I grew up with named Twig, Adrian James. That's what you need on this show too. The dude is berserk. Get Twig on here. But Twig got me into this school, right, of artists. And that was the first time I ever painted anything in my life. Because he said, hey man, because I was talking to Twig, because Twig is this incredible artist, and I'm looking at him like, man, if this is what art is, and I'm nowhere near this, I don't want to show anybody my stuff. Hell no. Look at this dude. But he said, man, you know who you would like. And I told him my story. I was like, man, drawing is boring to me. For me, it's boring. I don't like that I can draw. That's boring. But I want to express myself. He said, you should look up this guy called Basquiat. You would love him, right? And I went to the bookstore, which was my club, even though I couldn't read, but I would always hang out at Borders or Barnes and Noble. And I got Basquiat's book. And my mind exploded. Next day, Twig was gone. He moved to Las Vegas with a stripper. And next thing I know, this dude is on television. That's a whole other story. Like I said, you need to just, dude was a beast. Anyway, so fast forward, I was painting Basquiat pictures, and it was almost like that was my training wheels, right? Um, Painting his pictures, and I started doing shows painting Basquiat pictures. This is before Basquiat blew up. Nobody even know who the hell he was. And then that became boring to me because now everybody want to do Basquiat stuff, and it's like whack. That goes back to me being a rebel. I'm very rebellious. Now if you're doing it, I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward again. I'm in this homeless program. I'm in this room by myself collecting my thoughts, and I asked them, could you give me, because they ask you, what do you want? You got to go through these classes and they ask you, is there anything we could provide you with to make your stay here more comfortable? I said, could you please provide me with a pad, some drawing material, or anything that I can use to express myself? And they gave me this huge pad, gave me like stacks of these huge pads, that goes on easels and stuff,
Yeah.
this is stuff they used to do groups with.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me these huge pads, right? And at night, while everyone was asleep, I would be creating. And I started drawing the things that I saw in my mind. Matter of fact, I'll give you an example. And this is, I should have had this. I didn't know we were going to go here. Oh, this is
Well, what you
very
can do, just explain, and then I can
okay.
superimpose it so people
Good
see
deal.
clearly.
So I would draw these pictures of what I saw in my mind, right? And I started hanging them up all over my room, and it was just pouring out of me. Wherever I saw, I could look at a tree and I see something. I would see a face, right? So I started drawing what I saw. I could look at a cloud and I could see a face. I could look at the floor and I could see a face. I always saw these faces or this person sitting there with me. So I started to draw these things and I would hang them in my room. But they would have to come check on you every 2 or 3 hours. A person would have to come to your room and check on you, right? It's still like the psych wardens. And they come in my room, they see all these weird pictures, images on my wall, and they're like, he's really lost his mind at this point. But they don't know at that moment they finally allowed me to unlock myself, unleash whatever this was that was inside of me, which could only come out because I was in this isolated space, that closet, right? This room by myself. That's the only way these images would come out. It's like a little alien would come out of my body and I could create these little images, where sooner or later evolved into this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm going to show you the before images and then you can see these images. And that's where it came from. So those images I was painting while I was in the homeless psych ward thing, now it has evolved into this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's hopefully answer your question, Kim. That's where it came from. And it was healing for me, right? Even when I was doing the Basquiat stuff, that was healing for me. You know, it gave me a space because I had never seen anything like that before. I saw Picasso, I saw Dali, I had never seen anyone do what he did. And I was like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do, and it went from there.
I mean, what you're sharing is really a profound example of literally drawing from the soul and
Mhm.
how that was a part of your healing journey.
Yeah.
And so I would just be curious, as you being a mental health professional now,
Yeah. Yeah.
do you incorporate encouragement about creativity and self-expression as part of a person's healing or dealing with or therapy, I would say?
I do. I do because as my role in mental health, I have to be an example. I have to be an advocate. So 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 you guys understand what I do. I work for the federal government. I work for the VA. As a mental health professional, and um, my department, I work with veterans suffering from alcoholism, substance abuse, and homelessness. That's who I work with. Many of them were like me, aside from I didn't have a addiction issue, but I did have the mental part. So, um, and this is going back to everything again. This is interesting because the way I truly am is what people consider crazy, but it was really what was keeping me sane because I rode a bike, because I like being out in nature, because I like to basic people, I was weird because I didn't drink and smoke. To them, the people I was trying to hang around or the women I was trying to date, they thought I was weird for that. They thought something was wrong because they wanted to be around the tough guys or the crazy, whatever. And if I got with you, I kind of wanted to show you this is who I am. So hey, instead of let's going to the movies, let's go to the park. I still might bang you in the park, if I can say that on this show. I'm just trying to be. But we're going to go to the park. We're going to sit by the water. We're going to talk about the stars and quasars opposed to me trying to go pop bottles at some club or get high with you. That's not the type of high I was trying to get. I was trying to get mentally high with you. You see what I'm saying? I told you I was using the sexuality for spirituality. I was trying to, and it's really a clash, to be real with you. It's really a clash. Well, it's a whole nother show now. But
Now this is
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
So
actually, oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't want you
no,
to go.
no, please, because like I said, I go, but
No, no. I,
go ahead.
I think everything that you laid out, man, it really helped. It really helped paint the picture of those pictures. Like everything that you said, for those who really tuned in and really listening to you, they will look at your paintings differently now. I mean, I'm looking at the paintings differently now because I see the evolution, I see the origin behind them. Uh, Even the connection to, you know, being the mental health professional and being that you've experienced it makes you that authority. You
Yeah,
know,
because I have to
I
deal
know you want to say something.
with that's it. I'm sorry, just to interject, because in my position is based on lived experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? So who's the expert on you? You.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And I was always an expert on myself. It wasn't until I started going against myself, again, trying to sort of try to fit into what I thought these people, because like I said, I thought they were the cool people. Well, really, in all actuality, and this for everyone out there, you know who the cool women are? The ones who like comic books, the ones who want to go skateboarding with you, the ones who want, those the cool women. That's who, now would be like, what's that stuff, anime?
Mm-hmm.
Those the cool chicks right there. You want to go to the go see Star Wars and
Mm-hmm.
whoo, those the
Or rock,
sexy ones.
rock climbing.
Right, rock climbing. Right, want to go play pickleball with you. I play pickleball. So I want to go bike riding with you or something like that. Who could just sit on a line at an art museum at 2 in the morning and just discuss life, you know, and then be squeezing to something else.
Yeah.
Um, but that's how the mental health thing came. I met someone in there and she shared her story, and I said, man, I want to do that. Whatever she's doing, I want to do that. And every morning I would go to sleep around like around like 4 o'clock. I would finally fall asleep because I can't sleep. To this day, I still can't really sleep. And around 6, 7 o'clock, I would hear these car alarms going off. And it would drive me crazy. I just fell asleep. And I would look out my window like, who's honking these car alarms? And it was all these government cars outside and all these preppy people going and getting in these cars. And I kept saying, wow, they look pretty cool going into these cars and they got government license plates. I, I don't know what that is, but one day I want to drive one of those cars. I want to look like that. Well, come to find out, it was social workers. It was VA social workers, and they were getting ready to go see people like me, just outside of this. They were going to see them, and I ended up being one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a social worker, but I'm in that field.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
go ahead.
with that,
Yeah,
we were asking about, you utilizing art,
right.
with the people that you help now. Is there a
Right.
way that you encourage or inspire them through with that?
Yeah, I do because again, that's part of the lived experience. And I think, see, that's what I'm saying. Y'all got to stop me because I go, my mind goes a million miles a minute.
It's
No,
good.
it's
It's
all
good.
Yeah,
good.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, I am an example of that. Like you said, you see the plants. Again, I still go bike riding.
I see.
Weekends I ride like 60 miles. Um, and that's pedaling. I don't stop. I keep pedaling.
Mm.
Uh, I live my life accordingly. I think Kim, you came in my house one time when I had my house in Atlanta. You saw what my house looked like. You saw all my books and my plants, and that's who I am. And that's healing for me. That environment, that world is healing for me. And I kept trying to take myself outside of that world because to the basic people, that was weird,
Yeah. Yeah.
not eclectic. It was weird. And I wanted to be, I didn't want to be that. I wanted to. So you met me right when when you met me, when you two met me, right after that happened. So I think we met in 2019.
Yes.
I didn't get out that homeless program until 2018.
Mm.
And I turned it up because they gave me what I needed. You told me it was okay to be like this. You told me that, hey, if you start feeling that way, that you can ground yourself. Hey, here's a tool. Hey, what's over there? Hey, that's the color green. Hey, that's a light. Hey, that's a painting over there. Ground yourself. Hey, this is how you cope. Instead of reacting, how about responding? This is what you do. This is like, oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to me. Hey, you don't need to go, which I never did anyway. I never resorted to. Did I try to drink or try to smoke? I tried it. I I tried it, and that's not me. All this, we was turned up. I'm not turned up. Matter of fact, it made me even feel worse. I was like, I'm not doing none of this stuff. So I tried it. It's not me. Move on. But yes, so when I'm dealing with any of my veterans, we don't call them clients, we call them my human beings. Yes, the goal is to get them to understand. Listen, on this side, it's okay. It's okay to be. It's okay to be sober. It's okay. Hey, instead of isolating yourself, once you come to this art gallery with me, that's what I do for my job is dope. Because my job is taking them in a federal car with federal license plates. People think I'm in the FBI, and I'm taking people to the art museum, or I'm taking them fishing, or hey, let's go ride these bikes. Hey, let's go play. I'm getting them not to isolate themselves. I'm getting them not to say, you know what? Instead of me doing this, I'm gonna go hit a pipe, or I'm gonna go throw down this 40, which many of them still do because you have to be determined. See, I was determined not to ever let anything like that ever happen to me again. I made a decision, right? And this is again, I wasn't really a substance person. Matter of fact, I was not a substance person. Even mentally, I made a decision that I was never gonna go back that way again. And if I felt it, I'm going I'm going to dig into this more. I'm going to dig more into my spirit says create. My father said create. My soul says create. And that's mentally, physically, and spiritually. Go ahead.
Well, I was just curious when you said you wouldn't never go back into there again. I know what you meant in general, but since you didn't have an addiction problem, how would you
Yeah.
identify where you were, in terms of being, I guess, disconnected from yourself?
Yeah, because I kept putting myself in a world, I was gambling. And now here we go back to Islam again. This is where it gets tricky for me being Muslim or of Islamic faith, because technically certain things I'm not supposed to even talk about anymore because God has forgave me, right? Once I say La ilaha illallah, it's almost, it's the equivalent of being baptized or something. You're forgiven. So a lot of this stuff you aren't supposed to talk about, but in my profession, I am supposed to talk about this stuff because this helps people. Just like you just said, that's what this show is for. That's what this podcast is for, is to help people who may be in the same situation that I was in. So I find difficult in that space. I find it difficult to navigate in that space and those waters a lot. Um,
Well,
but
I,
I okay.
no, I'm sorry. Good.
To go back to Kim's question right quick, there were times where that dark cloud would come back again. 2000, it was 2020. No, I take that back. It was 2021. That dark cloud reared itself back up. Right, something happened. Right, just right before my father transitioned, something that happened to me, and it was 5 in the morning. You stayed right around the corner from me at this time. You stayed on the next street, and I'm surprised. I mean, if you would have been out there, you would have saw me standing in the middle of what street was that? What was our main street right there? What was it called? It started with an A. What is it? Was the, whatever street we stayed off of,
Right, right,
that
right.
main street. I can't think of what that street is called.
I know what you're talking about.
I was standing in the middle of that street one morning. It was 5 in the morning, 5 or 6, and the sun was coming up. This was April. It was in April. Matter of fact, it was April 19th. Everything always happens to me in April. Something life altering always happens to me in April. And I said, either I can go back there doing what I used to do, you know, stabbing, smash and dash, that lifestyle again, that way of life, smashing all these chicks or whatever, or I can stay righteous. Remember, my name is Sadiq. I can stay righteous. And as the sun was coming up, I can go to the left or the right. If
Oh,
I go to the right, I'm going back into stabbing and dashing again. I'm going back into that world, just of being a male whore, whatever that's called. It's a word for that. It's a whatever that word is.
mm-hmm.
And if I go left, which I didn't know at that time, I said, you know what, I'm gonna go left, and I just started walking. Again, it's 5, 6 in the morning, and I'm in whatever that street is called. I'm just walking up that street.
I just thought it might be all good.
Yeah,
All good.
I was just thinking
All
that.
good.
Yeah.
And it was all good
Yeah, see?
because I decided to go this way. It ended up being a mosque right there.
It sure is.
It's a mosque. I didn't know that. 58 seconds from my house, there's a mosque. 58 seconds where we live to that, there's a mosque right there. And I walked to it.
Mm.
And when I walked into the parking lot, it was a man sitting out, one of the brothers sitting out there, older brother, elder, but he was a Somalian brother. And I walked up to him, just like I walked up to Leroy. And I said, can I go in there? He's like, yeah, go ahead. And I took off my shoes and I walked into the mosque and I got on my knees and I've been on my knees ever since. And that's how you guys met.
Man.
Mm.
So tell me this. I mean, this is all incredible, man. Like, and I know there's so many layers and chapters, like you were saying,
Yeah.
just as people, we're all going to have multiple layers, but even within your story, there's so many different ways that we can go. It's like the Michael movie, we got we got one aspect of Michael, but now we got to wait for the sequel because there's so many uh dimensions to that brother, and the same as yourself. But one thing I want to make sure I touch on is, you are award-winning, 3-time award-winning documentarian. And one of the things that impressed me when I first met you was your documentary Death to the N-Word.
Yeah.
And when I saw the ad for it, I was at the Auburn Avenue Research Library in Atlanta, and the ad was on their glass thing where they show what's coming. And I said, Death to the N-Word, you know, I said, I gotta see this thing. And the reason being is because, even though it's controversial, and I feel as though to see it on display in terms of a discussion about it, especially during that time, there wasn't really much out there about it. And I said, I got to see this. And then we chopped it up after that, and we've been real cool since.
Yeah.
So tell us about that
Yeah.
experience, putting that together, and the feedback you got from it. And kind of like you can kind of sum that up. I know you probably have a lot of details to that, but
Right.
you definitely got to touch on that.
Okay. Well, to show you something right quick. Can you see that? Can y'all see that?
Is that a painting?
Yeah, that's one of the pictures I used to draw of what I saw.
Oh, see, yeah, you're gonna have to send me that so I can put that on the
Right.
screen for the people. Yeah.
So, death to the N-word. While I was in that homeless situation, in that psych ward, now in the homeless situation and program they had for veterans, we used to have to go to these groups, like I said, to teach us coping skills and things like that. And in this group, they asked you, well, when you get out of here, what would you like to do? And I remember years ago, I always wanted to open up, because I love movies. I love silent film, things like that. I was very into that world, to the point where I wanted to open up a movie theater. And I told the group and the nurses and everybody else, social workers who was in there, I said, I want to make a film. It's like, yeah, right. So next week, same thing. I said, instead of I want to, I said, I'm going to. I'm going to make a film. Yeah, right. See, I'm around these negative people again. You're homeless. you're in recovery. You're, yeah, right. That's all they kept saying to me. Yeah, right. Like laughing, literally laughing at me. And it's 2015. But they didn't know I already started it. I already started it in 2000. That's to call it, to pray. I already started it in 2014. I already started Death to the N-word. So how the Death to the N-word came about was I was a truck driver at the time. And I was in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's make this quick. I was in Nashville, Tennessee at a gas station, fueling up, right? And at this gas station, in Nashville, I don't know if anyone's ever been in Nashville, but it's a lot of rich white people there. Extremely rich white people. And they're in their Jags and their Benzes and they got the sweater wrapped around her neck and the polos on and stuff. Kind of like how I grew up, right? Like Carlton, you know. For white people though. And it was this crazy music coming out of nowhere with no bass. It was all treble. That music, right? Death music, whatever that stuff called, trap music, whatever it was called. It was some real crazy. And I'm like, who in the hell is playing this? Right? And I'm looking around and I see this chick in a brown blazer. It was a brown blazer. She bobbing her head to it. She into it. I'm like, she likes this? And I'm like, who is she with? And I'm looking around and I see the guy who she's with. And he looked like he was a football, but he's a big dude. Looked like Suge Knight. So he must have been played for Tennessee or something like that, right? With whatever school was in Nashville. And he bobbing his head. He sees me looking at him. And and I'm like, no. I'm like, no. Man, turn that BS off, right? So in my mind, I had to think real quick. If I go approach him about this, I don't even see a good outcome. There was no happy ending to this. There's going to be an altercation of some sort in front of all these white people with their cardigans on and in their nice cars, and you're playing this crazy music and your chick is bobbing her head to it, which was bizarre. So I had to walk with my tail tucked under. Remember, I told you I don't like to fight anyway. I'm not a fighter. In reality, I'm not. People think I'm really not. I can't stand it.
Mhm.
So I went driving down the highway and I pulled over on the highway on 75. I think I was on either 24 or 75, one of them. And I pulled over. And the reason I pulled over is because I couldn't see anymore. The reason I couldn't see anymore is because I was crying. And I couldn't stop crying because I was so upset. I was embarrassed for me being a male of African descent and us black people playing that crazy music. I was ashamed of not going to approach him or fight him for playing that stupid music. Or was I supposed to fight him for playing that stupid music, which they thought was cool? There was a whole bunch of things going through my head that I was ashamed of myself. I was ashamed that I wasn't masculine or machismo enough to go, put a stop to this. If I was even supposed to, I was ashamed and I couldn't stop crying. So I called my father, right? And this is not too long after my father had been diagnosed. He's dealing with his cancer stuff. And I said, "Hey, Dad," crying. He said, "Man, what's wrong with you?" I said, "Dad," because I wanted to kill this dude. I wanted to shoot him. And see, never in my life, even as a Marine, did I ever want to kill somebody. But at that moment, I wanted to erase them off this planet, and people liked him. I don't like y'all, right? We got another word for them. That was that group of individuals, how I felt. And I didn't want to be associated with them. And I said to my father, I said, "Hey, Dad, man, I just had this weird experience I want to talk to you about it. And I just felt like I wanted to kill this guy." I said, "Yeah, man, I thought I wanted to kill these people because they playing this N-word music." And he said, What do you mean? I said, man, they was in this. I was at the gas station. They got this music. He said, "See, I told you, y'all." I said, "No, no, 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 Dad, no, don't say y'all. That ain't me." He's like, "You know what? You're right." He said, "No, I stand corrected. You are all right. You ain't never heard me say no stuff like that. I ain't never been into that stuff, you know." Which I was considered a cornball for because I was not into that type of music. Yeah, I remember this chick said that corny because I went into that stuff. So I said, "Dad, I got to do something about this." He said, "What you gonna do?" I said, "I'm make a film about it." Yeah, well, that sounds like a good idea. See, this is but at this time, our relationship had changed. This was like 2000. Our relationship changed in 2006, 2007. So now we like in the thick of it at this moment. He's like, "Man, that sounds like a plan, man. How you gonna go about that?" I said, "I don't know. You're a photographer," because he's a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I don't know, man, but whatever it is, I'm going to find a creative way because I got this in my head now. It's locked in now. What I'm going to do." So I remember later on that year, tax season, and you get your check, you get your income check, and I was married at the time, and between her and I, we had 3 children. She had two, I had one. So you got a big check. You got the $11,000. I remember taking my check and I went to Best Buy and I went to Target and bought cameras. I looked up, I talked to somebody like, "What type of cameras do you get to make films?" And the females told me. So I went and got these cameras, right? Very expensive cameras. And that night I went to MJQ's and started interviewing people. Literally. That night I'm interviewing people,
And
right?
for
With
people who
these
don't
cameras.
know,
Yeah.
MJQ is a club
Oh,
in
that's right.
Atlanta.
I didn't even know that.
It's over there near uh
Ponce.
right behind Chipotle.
Yeah, yeah, it's an underground club. It's like a crazy underground club. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
right across from Ponce Market.
yeah,
Okay, okay,
Yeah, think Ponce Market. You go underneath that bridge. It's an
yeah.
underground club there.
okay,
Real crazy,
okay.
real crazy. And I'm interviewing people outside the club. Anybody who will come talk to me about why do they use the N word in their music. What do you think about people using the N word or artists who use the N word in music? That's where it came from. And then after that I became homeless, which people didn't know. And I told them I'm gonna do this film, which they like, whatever. I get out with this set of tools that I have. Like it's now, like I said, I know how to deal with myself, deal with not just myself, but with humanity, right? And that's what I did. And I went and made that movie, and it was very unique. It was a very unique experience because I got a lot of back. I realized that black women love that movie. I mean, that word. They love to use the N word. Black educated women and educated people, especially black women, love to use the N word. I don't know what it is about that word, but they love using that word. It was very eye opening. Um, and I was getting into a lot of altercations with people because they were like, "Man, why you trying to?" We said, "Man, it's whack, man. You sitting there, man. Why can't we use this word?" So it was times I'd be in the alley about to fight somebody. I got my cameras, got camera equipment, lights, and people want to fight me because I'm trying to ask them questions about it. So I had to really. It was good that I had learned all this stuff. And again, remember, I don't want to fight anyway. I'm gonna keep throwing that out there.
Mhm.
I don't want to fight anyway. So many times making this film, I had my tail tucked. I had to really humble myself. Not really, because like I said, I didn't want to fight anyway. But I had to put on a certain hat. I forgot what that hat is called, but in order to get this film done, and it took me 5 years to do it. Because again, that's when you guys met me. Well, you met me, and
Mhm.
I met him.
Mhm.
But and that's how it came about. That's how Death to the N word came. So it was like I said, it wasn't easy, but and, I remember my ultimate goal was to show it in Cleveland,
Mhm.
right? Because again, they use that word a lot in Cleveland, and I knew I was gonna get a lot of backlash from it. And to this day, I still haven't been able to show it in Cleveland. It's like Jesus coming home and they like, man, we don't want you here. You want some whack stuff. And that's the same way they're going to treat me with that film. And that's the same way they did. I still ain't been able to show it yet. But go ahead. I'm sorry, Kim.
Well, no, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know, how could someone see that film now?
Right now, because it was real funny. I had a lot of momentum, which you saw. I had a lot of momentum with this. I've gone down to South America, everywhere with this film, which you would be amazed how many people in that area were so into this film and who knew our history and was, again, this is some of my awards came from, or some of my, or some of my, because I got 3 awards, but I got 11 to 15 nominations. So, but I won 3. But they're educated on us, and they were behind me. But you come to America, it's like, so you can find it on YouTube because I had to take it down. I'm sorry. So just to I can send you all the link for that. So you can put it up. You can see Depth to the N-Word is very raw. It's a very raw documentary. I did not know what I was doing. I guess I did. I don't know. I was just being guided by what I felt at that moment, and it felt good to me to show it. What I think, what I put out. But now I would do part 2 is going to be completely different when I do that because I have something else for it now. But
Well,
Death to the N-Word is a raw documentary, a very edgy documentary, and I think I don't know if it was the one you came to because I showed it twice at Auburn. The first one I think was about to be a riot.
yeah, I must have been the second one. They was cool at the second.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
second one,
they
okay.
wild out on that one.
Yeah, the first one, it was the young people against the old people. I mean, literally, it was like a clash of the titans. People was literally like jumping over seats about to attack each other. Like, what the hell are you talking about? It was crazy. So, yeah, you came to the more refined one.
Yeah,
The decent people.
Well, I have one question about it.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, the depth to the N-word, the imagery that you used,
Yep.
did it involve a noose? Right. So I wanted to connect that to, the 5-year-old self, on that image of your mother, like why you use that, in the movie.
Shock value, for one. It was shock value. 2, is how I felt about that word. That imagery says a lot. And because that word's probably the last thing that person heard. It was, we gonna hang you, N-word, and he's gone. You see what I'm saying? So it was a lot to that image. The reason I use that image to make people realize that, hey, man, this is not a word. This is not no term of endearment or no madness like that. This is a very poisonous. This is for lack of a better, this is a poisonous term. Well, we took it back. What you took what back? What did you take back? What is it to take back? What we got poison ivy out. Never mind.
My godmother used to say, you can't make sugar out of shh.
There you go. That's it. That's prime example. So what are you talking about? This is the stuff I was coming up against, but that's what that imagery was for.
Yeah.
When I think of Death of the N-word, when I think of the N-word, I think of a gun and a bullet coming out. And that bullet is that N-word. And it's going to take you out. So
Well,
go ahead. Yeah.
No, man, that's amazing. And I want to respect your call to prayer. So really a lot of what you talked about, you covered a lot of the material that I was going to ask you next, because you went in on the Basquiat inspirations. You talked about your art. We know where the art comes from.
Right.
So, brother, you covered the ground. And
one more question.
And she has one more question. So,
okay, good deal. Yep.
Well, for balance in terms of your mother, and especially ending on that symbolism,
right.
what would you say, in terms of your, what your mother added to who you are, in terms of what you learned from her? Yeah.
Ooh, what I learned from my mother. My mother was interesting. She's an interesting. She's still here with us. She's an interesting individual. I do thank my mother for this because my mother, because my father was a worker. You know, he was out, you know, like, again, most men of that generation. And my mother was a stay-at-home mother. She provided us with some really cool things, which I thought thanked her recently for. She gave us, she taught me faux pas. You know, that's why you brought it up because my shirt, you know, faux pas. You know what people know what a faux pas is. She
Yeah,
taught us how to set up a table. You know, things like that. She gave us, huh?
normal things.
Yes, yes, she
Etiquette.
gave us all this etiquette. That's it. She taught us etiquette and things like that. You know, matter of fact, she gave us the majority of that. You know, how to conduct to carry myself in a certain way. Really came from my mother on that sense. Uh, uh, she was. I remember one time because my mother was a very physical person. She could fight. She's a fighter, right? I remember she hit my father with an uppercut that was made his teeth click. She hit him so hard. Um, she a little tiny woman too, but she could fight. That's my whole point. The whole point of the story, she could fight, right? And we were outside in the backyard, my brother and I, and or my brother and me, however you say that, and our group of our friends on the street. We were outside boxing, and I put water in my gloves to make them heavier, right? When I was punching people, my mother saw me because now I had to go against my brother, and I hit my brother with the wet boxing glove, and he was like, ah, you know. So my mother came out in her robe, you know, with the curlers in her hair, all embarrassing us, put on those gloves and beat the dog crap out of me in front of everybody.
Mm.
So again, she was a fair person as well. You know, she didn't play, you know, she knew I shouldn't have been doing that. And she didn't care about embarrassing me. The whole point was she loved me, she loved my brother. You shouldn't be doing stuff like that. I don't care who in front of you, just not how you treat, so forth and so on. I don't know, um, but my mother really, I definitely contributed her for teaching us that part of my life. Again, with the etiquette and things like that. Again, knowing faux pas and so forth and so on. Um, and family, because my mother had the functional family. She's from a very large family. It was 10 to 12 of them from the same two parents. And it's a very loving, functional family. My father was from a dysfunctional family, right? He had the crazy family. My mother, and to this day, everybody still, I've never even seen them argue. So I've witnessed that, you know, to be with people who don't argue, to be around brothers and sisters who don't argue. And if they even upset with each other, they know how to deal with it. You know, it might last like 10 minutes and you back laughing again or whatever, you know. But yeah, so I credit her for that, for being able to show me that side opposed to my father's dysfunction. Even though my father was the same one, he was in a dysfunctional family.
Mm-hmm.
Two totally different worlds again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we commend you for everything, you know, and thank you for being so transparent and just
Mm,
you know, for yourself. You know, we're all still, you know, evolving and healing, and you know, I'd say almost every time my
yeah.
favorite saying, the sun doesn't shine for itself, you know, so what you've shared is truly helpful and enlightening for so many people. You know, so I want to commend you for that, your art, the impact of your art, your film, and your work to come, and also as a husband and a father as well.
Which
So,
was me evolving as well. That wasn't easy either. Again, each child got a different version of me. This new set has a completely different version of what the other one, even though it's two of them. One I wasn't around, the second one I was, and these new three. But they both, I mean, those two sets got different versions of me, you know. So this new set is like being a grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can technically be their grandfather. You know, like, hey, who was that guy? That was the same guy who raised me, you know. So
Thank you
He's
for
cool.
hearing, though. Yeah.
Right. I was cool
Yeah.
the whole time. I was just trying to be something I wasn't, you know.
That's a
And
moral of the story.
Yes,
yeah,
I agree with Kim. Thanks for your transparency. Um, this is what this podcast is all about. The channel is all about, and your stories is definitely going to touch somebody. I mean, it touched us, and we already knew a certain amount about you, but you just filled us in a lot more that helped us really to see your journey.
yeah,
And thank you for your service. I know you said that it was a wild experience, but you did it, and you did it for your country, and we appreciate that. And
And
for
you're
all,
helping others.
and you're helping
Helping
others.
others get through it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a really big deal. So, like I said, man, your presence today was a gift to all the Soul Squad out there.
yeah.
So, you know,
Thank you for having me. Dawood, incredible. You already know, man. You're unmatched. Kim, what can I say? Again, Sister Healer, the Oracle. Um, Meeting you guys really, my time in Atlanta, you really made it special. And it was coming towards the end of my time in Atlanta when I met you guys. But it really made it special. And I kind of wish we could have connected earlier. But time is when, it's God's time, and we still here.
Yeah.
It's been what, 7 years now, 6, 7,
Yeah.
8 years, something like that. It's been a while.
more to discover and learn, more
Yeah,
places to
yeah,
go,
yeah,
and
yeah.
things to see.
Yeah.
If I have an opportunity to do a part 2 of this, then we can really get into something else. But hopefully,
You already
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much and for everything you've been to me, and I'm sure to Daoud as well, you and your family and your wife. So thank you so much for being you.
And to all
Thank
all the followers, and all the people out there in the Drawn from the Soul universe.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah.
If you were touched in any way, please put it in the comments and share that feedback. In the meantime, we're gonna log on out for this evening, get ourselves a little something to eat, and
Yeah.
man's gonna do his prayers.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm still within the window. Yes.
okay, all right. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again on another episode of Drawn from the Soul.
I mean, take care, guys.
Peace.